Alright, so this video is a continuation of the series of videos I've been doing on Lesch-Nyhan Syndrome. And what I want to talk about today is a historical article that was published in the 1960s, where they were just kind of discovering what Lesch-Nyhan Syndrome is. And like I've said in other videos, the understanding of Lesch-Nyhan Syndrome was a very, very smooth spectrum from about the mid-60s to the mid-70s. So the research went very, very fast. It was pretty much everything built on what went before it very smoothly. It's actually really surprisingly how smooth it went. And the article I want to talk about is called Inheritance of Purine Phosphoriboftransferases in Man. And yes, this video is going to be one of those videos. And this article was received May 13th, 1968. Now what they talked about, I'm going to kind of lump what they did with what people had did just before them all into kind of one thing so that this video will actually make sense. What they did was they studied HPRT deficiency in both people with full-blown Lesch-Nyhan syndrome and families where it was a lesser deficiency, and they found that within individual families with more mild deficiency of Lesch-Nyhan syndrome, when they heated the enzyme, so when they heat treated the enzyme to try to figure out if it'll still have the same amount of activity, they found that within individual families they'd have about the same resistance to heat. But if you have family A, they'll have one resistance to heat. Family B, their similar mutation, a similar phenotype, will have a different resistance to heat. Family C, they might have just about the same amount of deficiency. However, they'll have a third resistance to heat. So within one family, they'd have about the same resistance, but between families it was different. And this was before genetic testing, so this was part of a very creative way where they were able to figure out whether or not people within a family had the same mutation or whether they had a different mutation. And this was part of helping to track the heredity. And they did this, so what they did when they got to this study was they took a family with Lesch-Nyhan syndrome and a family with a lesser HPRT deficiency, and they found that within the individual families, they were able to track they were able to figure out who with this disorder has the mutant allele and who doesn't. And so with that, they were able to help them to establish and reaffirm that Lesch-Nyhan syndrome and HPRT deficiency is something that is associated with the X chromosome. And they also studied another enzyme as well as a control, and this was something that was something I'm not going to get into though. This was a interesting journal article for those of you who are interested in reading it. It does get a little confusing because they talk about experiments on 2 different enzymes instead of just one, and a whole bunch of different families, so it can get kind of confusing. But the authors, I really want to take my hat off to them because they did a really, really good job writing this article. So they took very confusing data and wrote a fabulous article that I had to read about 7 or 8 times. But they did well. Alright, this is Greg, out.